He offered water to a giant Apache woman. Next morning, 300 warriors surrounded his ranch. The Montana plains were quiet that morning. The cold wind swept across the wide-open land, carrying dust and the faint smell of wild sage. Jack Lawson, a lone rancher, walked along the ridge near his small homestead, his boots crunching over the frozen soil. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with sun-browned skin from years under the harsh frontier sun. Despite the isolation, he loved this life. The freedom, the endless sky, the peace of working with his hands. Jack stopped at his wind-powered water pump. The metal blades creaked as they turned, drawing water from the underground reservoir. He poured himself a cup and took a long drink, savoring the cold, clean liquid. He had just returned from checking on the horses when he noticed something strange in the distance. A figure was moving near the tree line, too large to be a normal person. At first Jack thought it was a trick of the light, a shadow stretching across the snow. But as he squinted, he realized it was a woman, a giant woman, easily twice the size of an ordinary human. Her long dark hair blew in the wind, and her clothing seemed handmade, traditional yet strangely futuristic in its design, almost glowing with a faint shimmer. Jack's heart raced. Encounters with strangers were not unusual in the Wild West, but nothing like this had ever happened before. The woman seemed exhausted, staggering slightly, her throat dry. She carried no weapons, and her eyes, deep and dark, held a quiet plea. Instinctively, Jack grabbed a metal cup and ran toward her. "Hey, you look thirsty." "Here," he called. The giant woman froze, her eyes widening. For a moment she seemed unsure whether to trust him. Then, with a soft nod, she crouched down as best she could, her immense hands reaching for the cup. She drank carefully, her lips brushing the rim. Jack watched, fascinated and nervous. When she finished, she looked at him and smiled faintly, a small, shy gesture that somehow felt like a bridge between two worlds. Jack realized that she was not a threat. She was simply lost and in need. "Where did you come from?" Jack asked. His voice sounded louder than intended in the empty plains. The woman tilted her head. She didn't speak in words, at least not in any language he recognized. Instead, she pointed toward the distant hills, then back at him, as if to say, "I am here because of you." Jack felt a strange connection, a sense that this encounter was not random. He had read stories about legends, about giants and mysterious travelers, but he had never expected to meet one himself. "Don't worry," he said gently. "You can stay here for a while. My ranch isn't much, but it's safe." The woman's eyes softened. She reached out, brushing her massive hand against the water pump, and nodded again. Then, without warning, she turned and walked back toward the edge of the trees, disappearing as silently as she had appeared. Jack stared after her. "Wait!" he shouted, but the wind carried his words away. He shook his head and returned to his ranch. Something told him that this was only the beginning. The rest of the day passed quietly, but Jack's mind kept returning to the encounter. Who was she? Where had she come from? And why had she trusted him enough to accept his help? By evening, Jack had finished feeding the horses and securing the gates. The Montana sky burned orange and purple as the sun set, and he could see the faint shimmer of the stars above. He poured himself a cup of coffee and sat on the porch, thinking about the giant woman. Suddenly, he heard a rustling near the edge of the property. His hand went to his holster, but he hesitated. It was too early for wolves, and the sound didn't match anything he had heard before. Slowly, he got up and approached the noise. There, in the shadow of the trees, stood the woman again. She didn't move forward this time. Instead, she gestured for him to come closer, her eyes filled with urgency. Jack stepped cautiously toward her. "What is it?" he asked. The giant woman pointed toward the horizon. Jack followed her gaze and noticed a faint glint in the distance, something moving rapidly across the plains. As the sun dipped lower, he could make out shapes, dozens of them, mounted on strange, glowing vehicles. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, part horse, part machine, with lights that flickered along their sides. Jack's pulse quickened. "Are they coming this way?" he asked. The woman nodded. Then, with a hand gesture, she seemed to say, "Protect the ranch. Protect the land." Jack realized she was warning him. Whoever these riders were, they were not ordinary travelers. They carried weapons, and they were moving with purpose toward his home. The thought of 300 enemies descending upon his ranch made his stomach tighten. But he also felt a surge of determination. "This is my home," he muttered, "and I'm not giving it up." He turned back to the giant woman. Can you help me?" he asked. For the first time, she spoke, her voice deep and echoing. though soft enough to carry only a few feet. "I am Naeli," she said. "We are coming. You must be ready." Jack nodded. "All right, Naeli. Then we prepare."
Over the next hour, Jack moved quickly. He checked the perimeter of the ranch, reinforced the gates with spare metal panels, and set up makeshift alarms using old tin cans and wires.
The sun disappeared completely, leaving the plains bathed in moonlight. Every shadow seemed to twitch, every sound magnified in the still night. Naeli stood beside him, massive and calm. She moved with surprising grace, her hands able to lift heavy objects with ease. She helped Jack carry supplies and offered guidance, pointing out potential weak spots in the fencing. Jack marveled at her knowledge and instinct. She seemed to understand strategy and terrain in a way that no human could. By the time night fully settled, the ranch looked almost fortified. Jack and Naeli sat on the porch for a brief moment, catching their breath. "You ever do this before?" Jack asked, half smiling. Naeli shook her head. She placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture that was both reassuring and firm. Jack understood. She meant that he had to face what was coming, and that he was not alone. Hours passed. The wind howled, carrying the faint sound of distant hooves. Jack's thoughts raced. Who were these riders? Why were they coming? And most importantly, what role did Naeli play in all this? As the first stars twinkled above, Jack realized something important. This encounter, the water, the warning, the giant woman, was not just luck. Fate, it seemed, had a strange way of guiding people together, and tomorrow, whatever happened, he would face it with courage, because he was no longer alone. The night deepened. Jack could feel the tension in the air, a mix of fear and anticipation. But alongside it was a strange sense of hope. The giant woman, Naeli, had chosen to trust him, and in return, he would do everything he could to protect both his ranch and this mysterious visitor who had appeared out of nowhere. And somewhere in the distance, the faint glow of hundreds of approaching riders hinted at a challenge unlike any he had faced before. Jack tightened his belt, checked his rifle, and whispered to himself, "Let them come. We'll be ready." The night stretched on, silent except for the wind. But deep down, Jack knew that dawn would bring more than sunlight. It would bring the beginning of a test that could change his life forever. The Montana plains woke under a pale, icy sun. Jack Lawson had barely slept, his mind restless from the night's strange events. Naeli, the giant Apache woman, had stayed nearby, silent and watchful, as if sensing every movement on the ranch. Jack knew one thing clearly: whatever had brought her here, it wasn't random. Something, or someone, was coming, and it would arrive before the day ended. Jack started his morning like any other, checking the fences, feeding the horses, and inspecting his wind-powered water pump. Yet every time he glanced toward the distant horizon, a shiver ran down his spine. Something was moving. And it wasn't the wind. By mid-morning, the shapes began to take form. At first they were small dots, glittering in the distance, but soon they became unmistakable. Hundreds of figures mounted on strange hybrid machines, part horse, part vehicle, their armor glinting under the weak sunlight. Jack's heart skipped a beat. 300, he muttered to himself, counting the shadows and lights. 300 riders, and they're coming straight for the ranch. Naeli's deep voice rumbled beside him. "They are not enemies yet," she said, "but they test strength and trust. You must speak wisely, Jack Lawson." Jack froze. He had faced bandits, wild animals, and even a sandstorm strong enough to bury his fences, but never had he faced a moment like this. Hundreds of warriors with glowing armor and unfamiliar technology were heading his way, and he had to find a way to survive the encounter without starting a war. The first rider arrived at the ranch gates by mid-morning, stopping with a forceful motion that made the ground tremble slightly. Jack could see the details now: elaborate armor etched with symbols of the Apache clan, but enhanced with strange luminous tech. The horses, or machines they rode, hummed with energy, lights flickering along their metal limbs. It was like nothing Jack had ever seen, a combination of tradition and the unknown future. A figure dismounted. An elder Apache warrior stepped forward, tall, imposing, yet calm. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, and full of curiosity. "Jack Lawson," he said, his voice firm and commanding, "you offered water to Naeli, the giant one. For this you have our attention. But attention alone is not trust. We are here to test both."
Jack swallowed hard. "I didn't mean any harm."
"I just saw someone in need." The elder warrior studied him carefully. "Intentions are easy. Actions are harder. The question now is, will you stand with us or against us? Jack looked at Naeli, who stood silently behind him, her immense frame towering over both men. She gave a slight nod, a silent reassurance. Jack drew in a deep breath. I stand with those who seek peace, he said. I will not fight without reason. My ranch, my home, it's open to those who mean no harm. A murmur ran through the gathered warriors. Some nodded, others shifted uneasily. The leader tilted his head, studying Jack's face. Words are only part of the test, he said. We must see deeds. There is danger coming, Jack Lawson. You and your land sit above a relic we have protected for centuries. Others seek it. You must decide how to act when it comes. Jack's brow furrowed. A relic? What do you mean? Naeli stepped forward, lowering her massive hand. This land carries a secret, she said. A power from beyond our world. My people have guarded it for generations. Others want it for destruction. Jack's mind raced. He had always known the plains were full of hidden history, strange artifacts, and legends. But this was beyond imagination. And, I'm supposed to just help? Yes, Naeli said simply. Help. Protect. Trust must be earned in action, not words. The elder warrior nodded. Tomorrow the ones who come to steal will arrive. The enormity of her presence, her strength, and her calm confidence gave him courage. Despite the overwhelming numbers, he felt a spark of hope. Then we prepare, he said firmly. We will face whatever comes, together. Jack stayed awake, checking every corner of the ranch, ensuring the gates were secure. Naeli moved quietly through the shadows, lifting fallen boards and adjusting alarms with effortless strength. Every now and then, she would stand at the perimeter, scanning the horizon, as if reading the movements of the unseen forces beyond the plains. At one point, Jack caught sight of a small group of riders testing the fences. They moved with precision, their machines gliding silently across the land. Jack realized they were not attacking. They were observing, learning. The elder warrior's warning echoed in his mind. Intentions are easy, actions are harder. Hours passed. The wind howled across the plains, carrying faint echoes of hooves and mechanical hums. Jack felt both fear and determination rising inside him. This was more than a test of survival. It was a test of character, of trust, and of courage. By the time the moon rose high, casting silver light over the ranch, Jack and Naeli had done all they could. The fences were reinforced, the alarms in place, and the perimeter watched. The distant riders seemed to settle, their glowing machines blending with the shadows. Jack sat on the porch, exhausted, his rifle resting across his knees. Naeli sat beside him, massive and silent, her eyes scanning the horizon. Tomorrow, she said softly, everything changes. You must remember this. Fear does not protect. Courage does. Jack nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He had faced storms, bandits, and isolation before, but never anything like this. The combination of advanced technology, the vast number of warriors, and the mystery of the relic created a challenge unlike any he had faced. Yet, he also knew one thing. He was not alone. Naeli was with him, and the bond they had formed, though brief, was stronger than any armor or weapon. As he closed his eyes, listening to the wind and the faint hum of machines in the distance, Jack felt a strange sense of peace amidst the tension. He had prepared as best he could, and when dawn came, he would meet the challenge head-on. Whatever the warriors wanted, whatever the relic's secrets were, he would face it with courage, skill, and the knowledge that kindness had brought an unexpected ally to his side. And somewhere beyond the hills, the faint glow of hundreds of armored figures hinted at a storm waiting to break, a storm that would test every lesson Jack had learned on the Montana plains, and every ounce of trust he could inspire in those who watched him from the shadows. Jack tightened his belt, checked his rifle one last time, and whispered, "We'll see what comes, and we'll be ready." Yet in the heart of the Montana wilderness, the stage had been set. The warning was clear. The riders were real, the stakes high, and the future uncertain. But Jack Lawson, lone rancher, and Naeli, the giant Apache woman, were ready to face the dawn, and whatever challenges it would bring. Dawn broke over the Montana plains, casting long golden rays across the snow-dusted fields. Jack Lawson awoke to the soft rhythmic hum of machines in the distance. Hundreds of Apache warriors had settled around the ranch the previous night, their presence a silent but constant reminder of the challenge ahead. Yet this time, Jack no longer felt alone. Nayeli, the giant Apache woman, stood beside him, her massive silhouette outlined against the rising sun. "The time has come," Nayeli said, her deep voice calm but commanding. "They are watching. But we can choose how to act before the storm reaches us." Jack nodded, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He had spent the night thinking, imagining every possible scenario. Attack, defense, negotiation. Nothing felt simple. But he had one advantage: trust. Nayeli trusted him, and he trusted her. As he stepped outside, the elder warrior approached, flanked by several others. "Jack Lawson," he said, "you have proven caution. But caution alone does not win battles. You must plan. You must understand the forces approaching, and the power buried beneath your land." Jack listened carefully. "What do you mean, the power beneath the land?" The elder gestured to a hill beyond the ranch, a mound of rock and snow. Beneath this soil lies an artifact from the stars. It is old, and it holds energy beyond imagination. My people have protected it for generations. Others want it, not to protect, but to destroy or use it for control. You live above it. Your actions now will decide who gains it. Jack's eyes widened. He had heard legends about ancient powers and hidden relics, but to have it literally beneath his feet was beyond comprehension. "So I'm in the middle of this?" he asked. "You are," Nayeli said, "and you are not alone. But we must act carefully. One wrong move, and the ones who seek it will strike." The elder nodded. "We can offer guidance, training, and numbers, but you must lead where your heart is strong, Jack Lawson. The land and its secrets respond to courage and clarity of purpose." Jack felt the weight of responsibility settle over him. He was just a rancher, used to tending animals and fences, but today he had to think like a strategist, a protector, and perhaps even a hero. The day passed quickly as Jack, Nayeli, and the warriors worked together. They converted parts of the ranch into defensive positions. Jack showed the warriors where narrow paths and natural slopes could serve as choke points. Nayeli, with her immense strength, moved fallen logs, reinforced fences, and lifted heavy barriers that no ordinary person could manage. Jack noticed that the warriors, though advanced in their technology, still relied heavily on traditional skills. Their glowing armor and strange vehicles were tools, not crutches. They respected strategy, precision, and quick thinking, qualities Jack had learned over years on the frontier. By late afternoon, Nayeli led Jack to a small clearing near the base of the hill. "Look," she said, pointing to a spot where faint energy pulses shimmered across the snow. "Beneath here is the artifact. It reacts to thought, intention, and trust. It can amplify courage, but it can also be dangerous if misused." Jack leaned closer, fascinated. The ground seemed to pulse gently, almost like it was alive. He felt a strange energy tingling under his fingers as he touched the snow. "It's incredible," he whispered. "Others will come for it," Nayeli warned. "They are strong and organized. But we have advantage too: knowledge, numbers, and willingness to act without greed." Jack realized she was right. The approaching riders weren't mindless attackers. They were skilled, organized, and dangerous. But they were also predictable in some ways. By using the terrain, the ranch, and clever planning, Jack and the warriors could even the odds. Together, they devised a plan. The ranch itself would serve as a decoy and defensive hub. Hidden trenches and barriers would funnel the attackers into narrow paths, where their numbers counted less and Jack's strategy counted more. Glowing decoys, crafted from mirrors and reflective metal, would create illusions of movement and force the enemy to divide their attention. Nayeli assigned warriors to watch key vantage points, scanning the horizon for early movement. Jack taught them how to trigger alarms quietly, ensuring that no one would be caught off guard. Every detail mattered. One mistake, one moment of hesitation, could cost them everything. As evening approached, the air grew colder. The distant hum of the approaching forces was faint but unmistakable. Jack looked at the warriors, now fully coordinated, and realized how far they had come in just one day. There was respect in their eyes, not only for Nayeli, but also for him. Trust, it seemed, could be built quickly when survival and purpose aligned. "We must rest before night," Nayeli said. "Tomorrow, action begins. But tonight, we learn from the land. The wind, the hills, the snow, they all tell stories. Listen and you will understand their guidance." Jack followed her advice. He walked along the ridge, observing the layout of the plains. The snow glimmered in the fading sunlight, shadows stretching long across the ranch. He could imagine the paths the riders would take, where they might falter, and how his defenses could trap or redirect them. Every small feature, a fallen log, a narrow gully, a steep slope, became a tool. Night fell, and the temperature dropped sharply. The warriors settled into positions, forming a ring around the ranch, their glowing lights visible like fireflies against the dark. Nayeli remained at Jack's side, watching, listening, sensing the distant movements with a skill that seemed almost supernatural. Hours passed. Jack felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. This was no ordinary night on the ranch. It was the preparation for a test of courage, strategy, and unity. The approaching forces, the artifact beneath the hill, and the future of his land depended on their readiness. Suddenly a shadow moved closer. One of the warriors, a younger scout, whispered urgently, "They are testing us." Small groups are approaching, probing fences, observing reactions. Jack nodded. "Let them," he said. "We know the terrain, we know the land, and we know each other. This is not about fear. It's about being ready." Nayeli placed a hand on his shoulder. "Good," she said. "Trust your instincts. Lead with courage. And remember, the artifact responds to your actions as much as theirs." Jack spent the rest of the night walking the perimeter, checking every alarm, every barricade, every path. He spoke quietly with Nayeli, devising strategies for contingencies. What if attackers split into smaller groups? What if they tried to bypass the ranch entirely? What if they came with unknown technology? Every possibility had a plan. By dawn, Jack felt a strange confidence. He was still a lone rancher, but now he was a leader of a small, powerful alliance. The warriors trusted him. Nayeli trusted him. And somehow the land itself seemed to recognize his determination, its energy pulsing faintly beneath the frozen soil. As the first light of morning illuminated the Montana plains, distant dust clouds signaled the arrival of the larger force. Hundreds of hybrid horse machines glinted in the sunlight, moving steadily but cautiously. Jack took a deep breath, gripping his rifle. Nayeli stood beside him, calm and imposing. The elder warrior approached, bowing slightly. "Jack Lawson," he said, "you have prepared. The test begins now. But remember this, trust is your strongest weapon. Courage is your shield. And unity. Unity will guide you through the storm." He felt a thrill of readiness mixed with anticipation. The storm was coming, the relic beneath the hill awaited, and the warriors of the Apache clan were at his side. Together, they would face the unknown, using strategy, strength, and trust to protect what is precious. And somewhere in the distance, the artifact pulsed faintly, a silent reminder that their actions today would shape the future of the Montana plains, and perhaps much more than that. Jack adjusted his hat, took one last look at the ranch, and whispered, "Let them come. We are ready." The wind blew across the plains, carrying the hum of approaching machines, the whispers of ancient energy, and the promise of a challenge unlike any Jack Lawson had faced in his life. But he was not afraid. He had allies, he had strategy, and he had courage, the most powerful weapons of all. The alliance was formed, and the battle for the Montana relic was about to begin. The Montana plains were quiet again, but the calm was deceptive. Dust swirled faintly over the frozen ground as Jack Lawson stood on the ridge surveying the horizon. Hundreds of hybrid horse machines glinted in the sunlight, advancing slowly toward the ranch. The riders were organized, silent, and focused, their glowing armor flickering like fire on metal. Jack's heart beat steadily, but he felt no fear. Nayeli, the giant Apache woman, stood beside him, her massive frame casting a long shadow over the snow. "They are coming," she said softly, her deep voice steady as the earth beneath them. "But we are ready." Jack glanced at the warriors stationed around the ranch. Every person, every machine, every trap they had prepared in the last 2 days was ready. He had been amazed at how quickly they had adapted, how disciplined and precise they were. "Good," he said, nodding. "Let's make this count." The first wave approached the outer defenses, small groups probing the fences, testing reactions. Jack held his rifle loosely, watching the patterns. "Wait for them to overextend," he whispered to Nayeli. "Then we strike." She nodded. With a swift motion, she lifted several heavy logs and positioned them along the narrow path leading to the ranch gate. Her strength was awe-inspiring, and the logs seemed impossibly large for anyone else to move. Jack realized that in her hands, the landscape itself became a weapon. The enemy scouts advanced, and the ranch alarms rang, tin cans clanging, wires stretched taut, making a sharp metallic sound. The riders paused, scanning for danger. Jack signaled with his hand, and the first trap was sprung. Hidden decoys, mirrors reflecting sunlight, creating the illusion of movement in multiple directions. The riders hesitated, their numbers splitting instinctively. Nayeli bellowed, a deep resonant sound that echoed across the plains. Her presence alone caused several of the hybrid horse machines to falter, their riders unsure of the giant figure before them. Jack noticed the hesitation and raised his rifle, firing precise warning shots into the snow near the enemy. The combination of tactics, illusions, and the land itself confused them. The elder Apache warrior stepped forward, coordinating his people. "Flank them," he shouted. "Push through the narrow paths. Do not let them reach the hill." Jack and Nayeli moved to the trenches they had dug near the base of the hill. The artifact beneath pulsed faintly, as if sensing the rising energy of the approaching battle. Jack realized that their actions, their courage, and their unity were connected to the relic in a strange, almost living way. It responded not only to technology, but to the intent and determination of those protecting it. The enemy tried to regroup, their advanced technology lighting up the plain like a network of small stars. But the traps, the narrow paths, and the constant pressure from the Apache warriors prevented them from advancing efficiently. Jack's strategy was working. Every mistake they made was anticipated, every hesitation exploited. At one point, a larger wave attempted to circle the ranch from the east. Jack signaled, and Nayeli lifted a massive barrier of logs and earth, blocking their path entirely. The hybrid horse machines skidded to a halt, momentarily stuck on the uneven terrain. The warriors moved in quickly, pushing them back with coordinated precision. Jack marveled at the effectiveness of the alliance. Humans and giant Apache woman, working together, using both the land and their brains as weapons, could overcome even the overwhelming numbers of the enemy. It was more than strength. It was teamwork, strategy, and trust. Hours passed in tense bursts of action. Dust clouds rose, the metallic hum of machinery mixed with the shouts of warriors. Jack never stopped moving, directing defenders, coordinating traps, and keeping his mind focused. Nayeli, almost a living mountain, moved through the chaos with ease, lifting fallen barricades, redirecting obstacles, and guiding warriors with gestures and commands. Finally, the enemy began to retreat. Their formations broken, their machines damaged, and their morale shaken, they withdrew toward the distant hills. Jack's heart pounded with relief. But he did not lower his guard immediately. He watched them leave, making sure no one tried to return or regroup. When the dust settled, silence returned to the Montana plains. The warriors gathered near the ranch, breathing heavily, their armor scuffed but intact. Nayeli stood tall beside Jack, her eyes scanning the horizon one last time. The elder warrior approached, his face serious but respectful. "You have done well, Jack Lawson," he said. "Not because of weapons or numbers, but because of courage, wisdom, and trust. The artifact is safe, and the land recognizes your intentions. Today, you have proven yourself." Jack felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had always considered himself a simple rancher, someone who worked with horses and fences. But today he had led, strategized, and protected something far greater than himself. "We all did this together," he said, looking at Nayeli and the warriors. "I couldn't have done it alone." Nayeli smiled faintly, a rare, serene expression. "You acted with kindness and clarity," she said. "These are qualities that even the strongest warriors respect. The land and the artifact have accepted you as its protector." The elder warrior nodded. "And my people have accepted you as a friend and ally. This alliance will continue, for the land and for what is right." "You've not only saved your ranch, but also preserved a power that must remain protected." Jack looked around at the Montana plains, the glowing snow, the distant hills, and the remnants of the enemy's retreat. He felt a profound connection to the land, the warriors, and to Nayeli. In a strange way, the encounter with the giant Apache woman, which had seemed so random, had led to something greater than he could have imagined. "That's the end of it, isn't it?" Jack asked, still catching his breath. "For now," Nayeli said. "But remember, vigilance is never ending. The artifact is powerful, and others may still seek it. You must be ready, and you must act with wisdom." Jack nodded. "Then we keep watch. We protect the land. Together." The warriors began to pack up, leaving small patrols around the ranch. Their advanced technology helped in surveillance, but they trusted Jack to maintain the heart of the defense, the ranch itself. The Montana plains, once lonely and quiet, now held the echoes of teamwork, courage, and unity. As the sun dipped low in the sky, Jack and Nayeli stood on the porch of the ranch, watching the golden light stretch across the horizon. "I never imagined my life could change like this," Jack said quietly. "Sometimes the unexpected brings the greatest lessons," Nayeli replied. You learned that courage is stronger than fear, and trust is stronger than suspicion. Today you led not only with your hands, but with your heart. Jack smiled. He realized she was right. He had faced an overwhelming threat, a test of strategy, and the mysteries of an ancient artifact. But through it all, he had stayed true to himself and found allies in the most unexpected form. Night fell, painting the plains in silver and shadow. The Montana sky sparkled with stars, and faint pulses of light from the artifact beneath the hill glimmered like a heartbeat. Jack felt a sense of calm he hadn't known before. The challenge had been met. The land was safe. And he had discovered a new understanding of courage, trust, and friendship. Tomorrow, Jack whispered to himself, we continue. But tonight, we rest. The plains are quiet, and for once, I can enjoy it. Nayeli placed a hand on his shoulder. Enjoy this moment, Jack Lawson. You have earned it. The alliance is strong, the land is safe, and the future is in your hands. Jack looked at the vast Montana horizon. The ranch nestled safely amidst hills and snow, and felt a deep connection to the world around him. He had learned that even in the most isolated places, courage, kindness, and unity could create extraordinary results. And somewhere beneath the snow, the artifact pulsed gently, a quiet reminder that the plains, the ranch, and the people who protected it were part of something far greater than any single life, a living, breathing legacy that would endure for generations to come. Jack adjusted his hat, glanced at Nayeli, and finally allowed himself to relax. The storm had passed. The Montana plains were quiet once more. But in the distance, the faint glow of the artifact hinted at future adventures, waiting silently, ready for those brave enough to meet them. For Jack Lawson, the lone rancher, and Nayeli, the giant Apache woman, the plains would never again be just a home. They were a place of courage, of unity, and of endless possibility, a place where the impossible could become real. And with that, the Montana sun disappeared behind the hills, leaving the ranch bathed in silver moonlight, peaceful, protected, and ready for whatever tomorrow might bring.